Morning, friends. Is it too early to pop this? Trump, I don't speak French, but Blanc de Blanc. I hear it's not Champagne because it's not from the Champagne region. But good morning, sorry. The readers, I didn't adjust the font size, so these are fake glasses. But my name is Matthew Hurt. I'm Director of Professional Services here at Leadership Institute. And good morning. Welcome to Leadership Institute's November Wednesday Wake Up Club Breakfast. That's a nice new logo. We live in interesting times. Donald Trump is on track to win 309 electoral votes, likely taking every single swing state while capturing the popular vote for the first time for Republicans since 2004. While Donald Trump didn't pull it out in Virginia, he did move the needle a full 5 points in the Commonwealth. Let's take a look at Northern Virginia. Loudoun County swung 21,000 votes in favor of the Republicans and against Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Fairfax County swung 60,000 votes in favor of the Republicans and against the Democrats. Alexandria City swung 9,000 votes away from the Democrats and toward Donald Trump. And Arlington, where your Leadership Institute is headquartered, swung 11,000 votes in favor of Donald Trump and away from the Democrats. For months, Arlington leftists diverted grassroots resources away from Arlington to try to salvage Kamala Harris's flailing campaign in Pennsylvania and North Carolina in a program called Beyond Arlington, deploying members of their organization to those two states. Not only did Kamala Harris lose bigly to Donald Trump in North Carolina, it looks like Trump will take Pennsylvania by at least 2 points when all is said and done. Meanwhile, Trump went from 17.08% in Arlington to 19.31% this year. Huge! Here in Arlington, the leftist local candidates ran barely their campaigns, which relied on the strength of their federal government employee volunteers passing out their blue sample ballot. Arlington conservatives made gains here this year, and they will continue to work to build a brand, build their infrastructure, and build trust with the voters. For the second year in a row, Arlington conservatives mailed information to thousands of voters, nearly doubling their reach from 2023 to 2024. You have for you an example for educational purposes only this morning of the kind of communication conservatives sent to 25,000 neighbors in the last week of the campaign. On a personal note, I received a call from a woman on Saturday, the last day of early voting, at 3:30 p.m. I was at the Longbridge Aquatic Center restocking conservative volunteers, and this woman, who was born in 1930 in Nazi Germany, called me to ask for a ride to the polls. She told me how she grew up in Hitler's Germany, remembering seeing American tanks during the liberation of her home country, and how she suffered through the Soviet occupation of East Berlin before finally defecting to the United States of America. She had just gone through a particularly difficult round of chemo and wasn't feeling up to leaving her condo on Saturday. And I promised to call her at 9 a.m. on Election Day, and every hour thereafter until I made sure she had a ride to the polls. At 10 a.m. yesterday, I drove her to the polls to cast her ballot. As she was telling her life story about living through Nazism and communism to the election official, I began to cry. I took her back to her condo and thanked her for having the strength to come out and vote. She was elated. She said, America cannot fall to the communists and to the leftists who want to subvert our republic and force us to live under their form of authoritarianism. What you do, many of you with your Leadership Institute training, is so very important. As President Reagan said, we are the last best hope of man on earth. Thank you. I encourage you to live tweet today's event. The hashtag is on the screen. That's a beautiful, beautiful new design. In 2024, your Leadership Institute has trained more than 37,828 conservatives at over 3,268 separate programs. Since 1979, LI has trained more than 327,391 activists, students, and leaders. You have before you LI's schedule for the upcoming month, including a program this Thursday and Friday, our Foreign Service Opportunity School. I encourage you to sign up for that. It's training on my team. Please take a moment to review these schools and consider attending one or sending a friend to a training. If you're watching online in TV land and you're annoyed by my glasses, you can go to leadershipinstitute.training for 300 hours of programming, and also leadershipinstitute.org/training to see all of our in-person programs. Now I'm going to introduce Kristen Lewin for a purpose of the pledge and invocation. Kristen Lewin was born and raised in Bozeman, Montana. Good-looking state out there, Montana, last night. She attended college online for 3 years at Regent University in Virginia Beach before moving to campus to complete her degree. Majoring in international studies was a challenge for Kristen. Her first year in school, her major was discontinued. She learned innovation as she had to substitute classes because most of hers were cut. As she studied, Kristen fell in love with international politics. Hopefully she'll attend our Foreign Service Opportunity School on Thursday and Friday. She graduated from college in May of 2023 and chose to pursue a master's in government, which will be completed in 2025. She has ambitions to receive a PhD from Regent University's from Regent University. While in college, she helped found the Regent University's Model United Nations chapter and held positions on the executive board in public relations and vice president. In 2020, Kristen became a volunteer for Operation Underground Railroad, OUR. Kristen became a project manager in Montana for the organization, and she launched a project similar to Operation Christmas Child. Human trafficking is a key policy issue that Kristen cares about, and she hopes one day to work for a nonprofit specialized in anti-human trafficking efforts. In her free time, Kristen loves to hike, kayak, write novels, and paint. She is currently translating one of her novels into Spanish in order to learn the language. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristen Lewin.
Good morning. Please join me in saying the Lord's Prayer as we thank Him for our newly elected president. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. But lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. I'd like to now introduce Cody Wynn for the programs report. Cody Wynn is currently the Director of Studios at Leadership Institute. He has experience in team leadership and management through his role and extensive training in team management through his alma mater, Colorado Christian University. At Colorado Christian, Cody earned a Bachelor of Business Administration and a master's degree in organizational leadership. In addition to these skills, Cody also has experience as a professional photographer and videographer. And I just want to point out, Cody has built out an excellent studios fellowship. So when you see in our programming online, in our emails, in social media, in the printouts that advertise our trainings, you'll see these awesome photos. They're way better than your iPhone photos that you take. Cody and his studios team, if you're a member of the studios team, just raise your hand and let's give these folks a round of applause. Excellent, excellent work. And I'll let Cody provide a programs report.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Great to be here, guys. And we're just going to kind of go over some stuff. And as Matt talked about 2 years ago, I kind of looked around and I saw that there was not enough conservatives in media. You know, especially now we're seeing legacy media reporting on all of this. You can really, really see the difference that alternative media and the rise of the internet, YouTube, and stuff like that is really making a huge, huge difference. Our goal here with the Studio Fellowship is I go out, I find principal conservatives, and I teach them how to do photography, videography, graphic design, give them skills. They're here with us for 6 months to a year, and during that time period, they're working full-time. This new graphic was actually made by our intern, Tim, who's right there. Wonderfully designed. Yeah, but our goal is to basically give them the skills, and then also when they leave, they get $7,000 to purchase their own camera gear with or computers to help augment their gear and make them better at what they're going to go do. And the whole point of that is they may go to a nonprofit that may not be able to drop money on the nice cameras. That's going to make the difference in photography, videography, and such like that. So a couple examples of the stuff we've done. This last year, we started with 6,000 followers on our YouTube. In the last year alone, we really, really put forth a large effort into making new content. This is actually already outdated. I gave this report in September, but we're already at 38,000 followers in 1 year. That's a huge, huge growth for YouTube, and that's letting our outreach get out to more principled conservatives who want to take our trainings, who are interested in learning about the Leadership Institute. Some of our biggest, once again, the fellows are kind of our biggest thing that we're producing here. It's a big investment. They're here with us. They make a full-time salary, but we need to make sure that these conservatives are getting out into the media. Ian Vega is one of those guys. You can actually see all of the pictures from the right. Ian's up in the top left. All of the rest of the images are Ian's photos. So Ian's been with One American News Network this last year, filming, traveling all over the country. He graduated in literally February, and he has just been filming a ton. Here's one clip from a pretty recent interview he did with Ted Cruz. I think it was at the Republican National Convention. It was a little while ago that we were going over this. But that's Ian with the camera. That's his clip that he then put up there. Another one is Miss Mary McCants. Mary is a fantastic fellow. She was actually one of our first 2 fellows here. She's over at Daily Caller, and she just made a documentary not so long ago about how easy it was to get transgender hormones. She did a whole behind-the-scenes going into Planned Parenthood, just showing how there's no safeguards to any of this, and that work is really, really, really important. She filmed part of the documentary with the camera equipment we purchased for her, or that she purchased with her $7,000. So it's making a huge difference and impacting them. If you guys haven't watched it, I would encourage you to go watch it. It's very good. But here's kind of like, I'll fast forward a little bit, but this is her going in there, secret camera, the whole 9 yards. So the other big thing we do is we save LI and other conservative partners a lot of money. I like to say it a lot, but Encore is a mafia. If any of you have done any events at a hotel, they charge an arm and a leg and then some. Our goal is we come in and we help lower that cost because we understand AV. We build all of the AV systems here. We set up the projectors. Last year we saved about $250,000. This year we're on track to save LI about $300,000 to $400,000 that we would have otherwise been spending on local sound designs, stuff like that. So it's a huge, huge benefit to LI. And then this last year, we have worked really, really hard. Sorry, it's fast forwarding a little too far. To work on our live streaming equipment. So that's been a big, big push for us. I'm losing my clicker here. I don't know what's going on. But this last year, I'll just leave it on this slide. We've worked really hard to improve our live streaming equipment. So we actually purchased the same live streaming equipment that most of the news networks use in an effort to make sure that we have live streams that are always going to work. And we've been able to also offer this to other conservatives who want to do their events, who want to live stream. But when you get into live stream costs, for example, we were out in we did ElecTech this year, our election technology training out in California. We saved LI about $100,000 for that. The internet, to get internet in the room, was $13,000 for 4 hours of internet. So we bring our own equipment because we don't want to pay the $13,000 just for a little bit. So those are some of the things we've been doing. Like I said, the biggest thing is the fellowship. We rotate about 2 to 3 fellows in per year, and we're just trying to turn them out. To this day, I'm still getting calls from other conservatives in the movement who are like, hey, do you have anybody who's ready to go? I'm looking to hire videographers, photographers. I need them in my studio yesterday. And so we're always kind of turning them around. So I think that's it.
Cody and his team do a really great job. We have a live hit studio on the 4th floor, and I'm in there a lot, as you can imagine. And, Sam and Natanya and Peyton are just excellent with making sure I look young, but I'm 87 years old on the inside. And to have somebody help with that equipment is so, so helpful. Of course, none of this would be possible without the generous support of our donors. And in fact, if you make your check out to studios, we'll quadruple match it today. No, I'm just kidding, mostly. I'd like to introduce, for the purpose of the introduction of our speaker this morning, Alexis Whitefield, to introduce Grover Norquist. Alexis Whitefield is from Allen, Texas. She's a freshman at University of Texas at Dallas, where she's majoring in business administration. She became involved in the conservative movement during the end of her high school career when she worked as an intern for Senator Ted Cruz's campaign. Alexis got firsthand experience in grassroots organizing by knocking on doors and attending phone banks for the campaign. In her free time, Alexis enjoys working closely with homeless veterans at the housing complex called DeGeorge at Union Station. In high school, she created a book that told the unknown stories of veterans called The Faces of DeGeorge at Union Station. Alexis's goal is to fight for the rights of veterans and to spread awareness for homeless veterans. After graduation, Alexis plans to start her own nonprofit that focuses on mental health for veterans. Her ultimate goal is to create a new form of care that allows veterans to gain independence and not feel isolated or forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis with an introduction.
Alrighty. Grover Norquist is the president of Americans for Tax Reform, ATR, a taxpayer advocacy group he founded in 1985 at President Reagan's request. ATR works to limit the size and cost of government, imposes higher taxes at the federal, state, and local levels, and supports tax reform that moves towards taxing consumed income one time at one rate. ATR organizes the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, which asks all candidates for federal and state office to commit themselves in writing to the American people to oppose all net tax increases. In the 117th Congress, 175 House members and 44 senators have taken the pledge. Norquist chairs the Washington, D.C.-based Wednesday meeting, a weekly gathering of more than 150 elected officials, political activists, and movement leaders. The meeting started in 1993 and takes place in ATR's conference room. There are now 51 similar center-right meetings in 45 states. Mr. Norquist also serves on the board of the Parental Rights Organization and Center for the National Interest, formerly the Nixon Center, served on the board of directors of the National Rifle Association of America from 2000 to 2018, serves as a contributing editor for the American Spectator magazine, serves as president of the American Society of Competitiveness, authored 4 books: Rock the House, Leave Us Alone, Getting the Government's Hands Off Our Money, Our Guns, Our Lives, Debacle, Obama's War on Jobs and Growth, and What We Can Do Now to Regain Our Future, with co-author John Lott, and End the IRS Before It Ends Us, How to Restore a Low-Tax, High-Growth, Wealthy America, published April 7, 2015. Previously, Mr. Norquist served as a commissioner on the Advisory Commission on Electronic Commerce, a commissioner on the National Commission on Restructuring the Internal Revenue Service, economist and chief speech writer, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, 1983 to 1984, campaign staff on the 1988, 1992, 1996 Republican platform committees, executive director of the National Taxpayer Union, executive director of the College Republicans. Mr. Norquist holds an MBA and a BA in economics, both from Harvard University. He lives in Washington, D.C. with his wife, Selma, and 2 daughters. Please all welcome Mr. Norquist.
Thank you, Alexis, Matt. Well, we just had an election, and here's what we missed. If the D's had got the trifecta, if they'd won the House, the Senate, and the presidency, which, looking at all the polling, looked completely possible, they could have eliminated the filibuster, so you don't need 60 votes to do anything in the Senate. And they would have had the votes to add any number of states to the United States, and giving they would hope, 2 Democratic senators for each of them. D.C. was their best bet. Puerto Rico is actually not that good of a bet for them, and just elected a Republican. But they would find something, Guam, whatever. They'd find some additional states to add. And then they would pack the Supreme Court and put 15 or 16 25-year-olds on the court so that they would have it in control forever. They would change labor law. They had the bill, the PRO Act, PRO. It was everything organized labor the labor unions ever wanted in their lives. They just put up in one huge pile. I thought the more things you added to a crazy bill, the fewer people would be willing to touch it. Turns out with the Democrats, if you put every special interest in the labor union business together in a pile, they have to do whatever subset of those want. And they got every Democrat to make that commitment. They got every presidential candidate. They said, you're not possibly getting any support from us unless you make a commitment to sign this bill. They also made that commitment. They were generally made secretly, but some of them said it out loud. But the AFL-CIO said they've all made this commitment to us. I asked people to make a commitment, not to me, but to the American people. They won't raise taxes. It's public. It's in writing. It's online. Everyone sees it, okay? Their promises in secret, because it could hurt you in certain states, perhaps, but they wanted the commitment. So had they got the trifecta, the Democrats, they would have changed American politics, changed the rules for politics. They'd have sent everybody a mail-in ballot, maybe 2. They'd have sent one to anybody who lived here, not necessarily citizens. They would change the rules, and it would be decades before the modern Republican Party would be competitive again. And if you think I'm overstating, look at this, later put it on your refrigerator so you have it. This is control of the House, the bottom, control of the Senate, the presidency, the little line in the middle. From 1932, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president, until 1994, when the Republicans captured the House and Senate, the yellow line, you'll see there are only 2 times that the Republicans won control of Congress. 2 years under Truman, 2 years under Eisenhower. The rest of the time, the Democrats had at least one body, and only 6 years that the Republicans had the Senate by itself. The rest of it, they ran either both houses or at least one of them. They could stop anything. We were allowed to elect presidents, the Republicans did, in order to pretend to be players on the field. But you know, Eisenhower would be in, well, the Democrats said, we'll wait until he goes away and we'll pass what we want. Nixon came in, when he goes away, we'll pass what we want. Reagan, when he goes away, we'll do what we want. Presidents can delay things. That's about it. They can veto things. They can't make anything happen. And so saying, oh, we win the presidency, great, what do you do with it? Well, we'll slow down the march towards big government. That's what we'll do, we'll slow it down. That's all they could do. This was a one-party state for 62 years. In Mexico, they had the PRI, the Party of the Revolution and Institutionalized, PRI. We think of that as not terribly democratic. They never had this level of control for this long a period. We had a thoroughly one-party state control in all meaningful senses, with only the ability to put the brakes on when a Republican president was there to go, could we not do this when I'm president? Please wait until I've moved on. And that is the control we had. In 1994, that is the year that 96% of Republicans in the House and the Senate signed the pledge never to raise taxes, ever. That was made more powerful. The pledge had existed since 1986, when I asked people to sign it while they were looking to do President Reagan's tax reform package. We wanted to make sure it didn't turn into a tax increase. And enough signed it, Reagan signed it, said this is not going to turn into a tax increase. And the other team never even tried, because there was 100 congressmen and 20 senators and one president who said, it's not going any further if you do that. So that was the good protection. But we found it was so important in the '86 election, and candidates talked about it all the time, that they signed the pledge. And we got sued by the Democrats, Democrat Congressional Committee, saying, that's against the rules. And we said, what are you talking about? Well, it turns out it wasn't against any rules, but they did have 18 charges that they wanted to level at me. But what I did get from the FEC was an agreement that everything we did was perfectly legal. Most people don't go through lives with a list of 18 things they're allowed to do. You sort of have to wonder, can I do this? Well, it's legal. Yeah, but will the FEC like it, okay? I got a list that tells me all the things I can do. But we got people to make that commitment, and then more and more took it as the years went on. And in '88, all the Republican presidential candidates except Bob Dole signed the pledge never to raise taxes. And they handed it to Bob Dole in New Hampshire a couple of days before the New Hampshire primary, sort of tossed it in his lap. And he reacted as if he was a vampire and somebody just tossed a crucifix in his lap. And, it was not a good, didn't look good on TV. And he lost. He was supposed to win. He lost New Hampshire, having won Iowa. And he was finished. He ran again later, but first thing he did, he signed the pledge. Before he announced, he made me fly up to New Hampshire with him to be there when he said, and I am never taking the pledge. He had learned the lesson late in life that Republicans don't raise taxes. And so in 88, Bush won, having taken the pledge. Then, remember, he was losing to Mike Dukakis, if you can imagine that. He was losing 14 points to Mike Dukakis. Then he took the pledge, won the primary. Then he said when he was 14 points down, he reiterated again that he would never raise taxes. He said, speaking at the convention, the Democrats are going to want me to raise taxes. I'll say no. They'll come back. I'll say no. They'll come back. I'll say no. And he had it right. That's exactly what they did. He forgot about the part about saying no each time. And Democrats are, on the issue of taxes, are like a teenage boy on a prom date. They keep asking the same question different ways. And they will keep asking the question. And to go no, no, yes defeats the purpose, okay? And what Bush did was no, no, yes. He said he agreed to a tax increase, and he threw away a perfectly good presidency. I mean, the guy managed the Cold War's end. Okay, Reagan broke the back of the Soviet Union. But Bush was there, and when it fell apart, there wasn't a lot of blood on the floor. That could have gone sideways many different ways. It didn't. He managed that competently. He kicked Iraq out of Kuwait without sitting on top of Iraq for 25 years or something to see what happened. He did many things right. He's only remembered because he broke his word on taxes. And literally on his tombstone, lied to the American people, raised taxes. That didn't have to happen. He could have been one Cold War. I mean, there are a number of things he could have been. But he decided to become famous by raising taxes when he said what he promised he wouldn't. So in the 94 election, all the Republicans, 96%, took the pledge and have kept it. And most Republicans both take the pledge. They all keep it. Because even if you're a Republican, people think you've taken the pledge if you haven't. And people get attacked for breaking the pledge if they raised. I didn't take the pledge. Voters thought you did because you were a Republican. So mostly, though, I don't think there's been a Republican who's voted for tax increase since 94, maybe in some subcommittee somewhere, but we haven't found it yet. Half the time, the Republicans have controlled the House and the Senate, Congress. We've controlled Congress half the time. Here, twice in 62 years. Now, half the time. And that changes the nature. This is why the Democrats keep talking about democracy having disappeared. Biden remembers clearly everything before 1994, okay? And during that, and he remembers the time period I was discussing, which is Democrats do what they want. Sometimes they have to go slower if the Republicans have a president, but they always get what they want over time. Boom, 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 boom. That's democracy. This nonsense about having Republicans run the House and Senate so they can't even pass bills for years at a time, or that they undo. I mean, we forget how much of Obamacare was undone after he left. It's pretty bad as it is, but a whole bunch of it was pulled. All the taxes were taken out of it. The biggest parts of the spending were taken out of it by the Republicans who had pulled it out after they got back in power. So we're in a position to undo what they want to do, stop them in the first place. This, in their view, is not democracy. That's what all this talk about wanting democracy is. They wanted to go back to the blue period, not this period where you had to share power. And that's what the goal was. That's what they were planning to do. That's why they spent billions and billions of other people's money. We have no idea how much tax dollars were funneled into those campaigns. Never will know. But they completely outspent the Republicans. They threw everything in there. They dragged out every trick in the book, and they still lost. And the reason it was all worth it, everything was worth it, was they were going to change the rules and get back to 1932. Set up labor laws so that they had somebody to do all their fundraising for them. You saw the numbers that labor unions raised $2 billion for the Democrats in the last 2 years, okay? Imagine if instead of 7% of the private sector unionized, we went back to 33% of the private sector unionized, which is what they had for a while. How much more money would just flow into their coffers through union dues? We wouldn't be able to get off the floor for decades if that had happened. So that's what didn't happen. And that is the cheerful part. What does happen? Well, we don't have 60 votes in the Senate. We haven't had 60 votes in the Senate this decade, the last 100 years. So you really do have to have, except for that one time period where you can cut taxes and do some spending stuff once a year with the reconciliation package, that you can do with 51 votes. And so as much as possible, and the Senate leaders, Crapo in the House, and the folks in the Senate, rather, Crapo from Idaho, he's putting together the taxes cuts that they think that they can get in one big package. Same thing in the House. They've been working on this for a long time. People talk about the Trump administration or Trump in waiting. They're practicing. They're getting ready. The House and the Senate are writing the bills, have been writing the bills for 2 years about what they do if they got reconciliation back. And they're getting as much as they can get into that, because after that, you have to talk to Democrats, and what you can do is limited. But we will be able to get significant tax cuts passed. They're going to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We're going to we're going to take the corporate rate from 21% down to 15%. Which is what Trump wanted to do in the first place. That will be tremendous growth. One of the things that the left lies about, but most Americans understand, we've done, the Americans for Tax Reform, the group I run, we've done polling and some focus groups on it. People know that the corporate income tax is not paid by somebody named Mr. General Motors, okay? There is no Mr. General Motors. There's a piece of paper, the incorporation papers of Mr. General Motors. They're employees, they're consumers, they're investors, but there's no Mr. General Motors. So when you don't tax a pile of legal documents saying this is General Motors. What you tax is, if it's possible, given the markets, they might raise prices to pay the taxes. That's paid by everybody who's a consumer in America. But you can't do that forever, or companies would do that forever. Just raise prices each time. They can't raise prices because of competition. So they reduce their costs. And the number one cost for companies is workers, employers, their wages, their pay, their benefits. And about 70% of the corporate income tax is paid by workers in lower wages. So when politicians go, oh, I don't want to tax you, I'm going to tax the big corporations, what they're really saying is, I don't want you to see me tax you. I'm going to tax you through the arm of the corporation, not giving you wage increases, pulling back on pay, on hours, on number of people working, because we took the money that they were going to use to pay you, and they don't have it. So they're greedy. So you should yell at them when things go wrong, not me. But that hasn't worked as well. Didn't work in the last several elections. And what's interesting is that in polling, people actually do understand that. So I wish our politicians would say that more often, more loudly. It's an important point to make sure that it's not just good enough that people know it. They need to know that everybody else knows it, because then they can feel comfortable talking about it. You can know when you're, yeah, I know that that's really not, but do they want to start a conversation and feel they have to educate the guy next to them? Or if they knew everybody got it, they'd go, isn't it awful? They're lying to us again. Yeah, we all know that they're taxing us, not the companies, when they do that. So that's going to be the big fight. But I would suggest that as exciting as it is to focus on the House, Senate, presidency, and I guess we're still waiting to find out about the House, right, as to what happened. But at state level is where the real action is, and will be for decades to come. And that's good for us. This is the map before yesterday. I think we probably strengthened in Michigan, picking up a seat. We should have strengthened in Pennsylvania. But it's basically the same. A couple of states had some minor changes. Red states and yellow states are Republican. They either have yellow states have both houses Republican, but not the governor, because we nominated an idiot. And the red states are ones where you have a Republican House, Senate, and governor. And in these, if the Republicans agree on something, they can pass it. They don't have to ask the Democrats for permission. And what that has meant is, in the red states, there's been a great deal of experimentation in the sense of taking an idea, first, that hasn't been done before, clearly, at the state level, passing it in one state. And here's our advantage. Our ideas work. Their ideas don't work. So when we take our ideas and implement them properly, you can take a good idea and mess it up, but implement it properly. We now have 10 states taking their income tax to zero. The first several efforts to do that were done poorly, crashed and burned. Arizona, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, all stumbled the first time they did it. But North Carolina came back. What they wanted to do, the first thought was, here's what we'll do. We'll take the money out of this income tax, cut the income tax, and then put it on the sales tax. That'll be great. Everyone will love that. No, it's not great. And by the way, when you extend the sales tax to services, like people who cut your hair for a living, a sales tax is an income tax for a barber. For many jobs, if you're a lawyer, the sales tax is the income tax. The auditors, the sales tax is an income tax. Because they don't have factories and big overhead. It's just their sales is their income. So that didn't work in each of those states. So they backed up and said, rather than shift it from the income tax to some other tax, we're going to reduce spending. So if spending is expected to go like this, we're going to set a floor, a ceiling on what we're going to spend. Any dollars that come up above that, this is what North Carolina's done for 12 years now, is they've taken their income tax down towards zero. Because they started first, they were very cautious. In less than 5 years, Iowa's gone further than North Carolina did in the last 5 years, going from 12% corporate to 7% corporate, 8.6 individual down to 3.9 individual in 5 years, half the time of North Carolina. So we're able to speed this up because everybody watched North Carolina do it so carefully and so slowly but carefully, and watched it work. And they said, well, these are the ways we could speed this up and make it work. And so as when revenue pops up above that spending limit, the teachers union gets to steal some of it, but the rest of it goes down to a permanent reduction in the income tax rate. And it just clicks down each time. There are now 10 states where the governor and the legislature has committed we're going to zero. And that is extremely helpful. Virginia is surrounded by people that are doing that. West Virginia is on the way to zero already. Kentucky's on the way to zero. Tennessee's at zero. Our friends in Ohio are down to 2 rates, 1 rate, and they intend to go to zero. That hasn't gotten there yet. Georgia and Mississippi are both committed to going down to zero, as is now Louisiana. Those are just the ones in your neighborhood. But our friends in Oklahoma are on the way to zero. Arizona, North Dakota, Missouri, and Utah have all made those commitments. So but what they can do is they say, see how well it worked in the 7 states that have no income tax, in Florida, in Texas, in the states that are going towards zero. See how it's worked out there. So once you've got a good idea in one state and you move it and you pass it, then all of a sudden it becomes infinitely easier to enact it in another state. I was testifying in Florida on criminal justice reform, asking some questions about how long do you need to keep somebody in prison? Do you need to keep somebody in prison when they're 65 if they were, robbing banks? Are you worried that they're going to, how much time do you have to keep, how many people in prison? Can you save some money? And at the same time, be safer, not less safe, as you do it. Who is safe to let out of prison? Who isn't? And when I said this law that's in front of you was passed 4 years ago in Texas. Everyone was, reading their iPads while I was talking. But then as soon as I said they did this in Texas 4 years ago, they put the iPads down and they started listening. They said, Texas, I won't get attacked for being soft on crime. And two, 4 years ago. You mean nobody lost an election? I mean, it didn't blow up, it didn't go bad or whatever? Then we had this conversation about what they might do. If you can show somebody that's worked in a state, it moves much quicker. And the opportunities we have both on income taxes, you saw this with right to try, that if you have a terminal disease and there's medicine that they think would help you, but we haven't proved it's effective yet. We know it's safe, won't kill you faster than what you got, but we don't know if it's, you don't have to wait until somebody's spent 6 years checking to see if it works, because you don't have 6 years if they don't get going. And we've got 35 states to pass that law that said you don't have to wait on the FDA doing additional, maybe the first 5 years of tests were stupid, but the second 5 years of tests is particularly stupid in this case, and let's get going. And so that passed state by state, and then the federal government passed the law. We've never passed a law disciplining the Food and Drug Administration, because whenever you even talk about how long they take to get new drugs on, they yell at you and they go, thalidomide, you can't do that. And then all of a sudden everybody backs down and gets scared and shuts up. This time the FDA folded because it moved state by state. All of the liberalization of gun laws in the country, right? Concealed carry, shall issue concealed carry, constitutional carry, open carry, these all passed state by state. And every time another state passed it and the world didn't end and there weren't shootouts at the OK Corral all the time, then more and more states passed it to where we got about 44 states had shall issue concealed carry. Before the Supreme Court said everybody has to have it, it was passing state by state because you could see it working in the different states. The Democrats can't, and so while we work at the federal level, every once in a while getting a big tax increase, big tax cut, those sorts of things, doing efforts to deregulate at the federal level, which doesn't require Congress to agree. You just undo things. The federal government, the executive branch, did all by themselves. These are very helpful, get more judges, that sort of stuff. What's happening at the state level, 10 states have passed education savings accounts in the last 3 years now. 10 states, for everybody. Not just for poor people, not just for handicapped people, everybody. And if the state spends $10,000 on your education, at least half of that goes with the kid in a backpack to whatever school he or she wants. And it can be a better public school down the street or in another town. It can be in a private school. It can be a parochial school. It can be a Christian school. It can be a witch's school. It can be anything that parents want. Parents are in charge. And oddly, parents don't do witches schools. They do get stuck sending their kids to public school, which is similar. But 10 states now, and Tennessee will go this next year, as will Texas. The kids can take half of the money the state was going to spend and take it with them to any place they want to. Now, this is our opening bid. Okay, this is the compromise. We want every dollar spent goes with the kid in the backpack, not some of it. But doing it this way, they've actually saved the public school system somewhere between $20 and $40 billion already in the last 3 years, because every kid who leaves costs less when they leave, and they still get some of the state money still stays with them. So it's actually the teacher, you're going to bankrupt the schools. Actually, the schools have more money to waste than they did before. And so that's not as strong an argument as they think. But we will solve that problem for them. We want every dollar that follows that is supposed to be helping that child follow that child in his or her backpack. Taking on school choice is taking on the most powerful union in the country and winning in 10 states and partial victories in other states as well, and more to come. Okay? This is dramatic. Why are we able to do it? Because there have been years of various schools set up different voucher systems and so on. And so we knew that private schools were less expensive, they worked better, and Then as they passed in one state, all the other states looked over and realized nobody lost an election over it. Matter of fact, the only people who have lost elections over this issue are Republicans defeated in primaries because they wouldn't support school choice because they said everybody loves the public schools in our rural area, and they've been in bed with the teachers union and the school board and the administrators of that school, and they've been convinced that everything's perfect. And those people, 10 lost in Texas, were defeated. In Iowa, the governor of Iowa primaried 9, beat 8 of them. The 9th guy came over and said, I'm on your team now. And then they passed the bill getting everybody school choice. So we can, if you have an idea, don't run to Washington and expect to pass it in the next 3 years because it takes 60 votes in the Senate to pass something. But if you've got an idea that the feds could do too, someday if you wanted, pass it in one state, show that it works, and move horizontally state by state. The left cannot do this. This is our secret power, or no, it's not, superpower, our super secret power. It's not a secret, I'm telling you, but it's a superpower. And that is, our ideas work, they can go state to state and then to national, okay? And other countries borrow our good ideas too, so that can do even good outside the US. But the Democrats, when they had that idea about government-run health care, Mike Dukakis was running against Bush, and he passed a bill that said mandated everybody had to have insurance, mandated, passed a law in Massachusetts. It didn't get implemented. It was going to be implemented over time. He ran saying, I've solved this problem. This is a great idea. I want to do this in the whole country. As soon as he lost the election, he went back, and when no one was paying any attention, the legislature in Massachusetts and the governor of that state strangled the baby in the crib. They just undid the whole bill because it was too stupid and too expensive and wouldn't work, and they knew it. They wanted to impose it. Thank you very much. They wanted to impose it on the whole country. They were and they did with Obamacare, put a version of that on the whole country. But then you never saw Obamacare in one state, just Obamacare nationally. Now, Obamacare is bad enough, but now they have this Medicare for all, which is not Medicare, but it is for all because you have to do it. It's mandatory. It's go to jail stuff if you hire your own doctor to do anything or your own insurance company. Everything has to be done through the government. It is more socialistic than Canada, where at least about a third of Canada's health care is still private. Much of it is not, and it doesn't work very well, but it's not 100%. This goes to 100%. This is the bill that Bernie Sanders has. Bernie Sanders passed this bill in Vermont. It was so awful, they repealed it. Bernie Sanders remains committed to passing it nationally. Okay? They know it doesn't work. They know it's too expensive. They know the people won't like it. They're going to have to ration care is a way of saving money. But they are willing to do it to the whole country, but they can't do it in one state and then say, look at this. Wasn't this cool? Didn't that work well? You shouldn't be scared. This is great stuff. So while we fight at the state level, at the federal level, bringing taxes down and doing what we can to get spending and regulations down, we now have in 50 states, or at least the 24 states that are completely red, plus the 5 that have Republican majorities that can override the vetoes of Democrats. That's where we're going to be passing the next generation of free market, limited government reforms that will spread state to state, even eventually in blue states, maybe through the initiative process, maybe because they get tired. And that's the next 30 years in a nutshell. Questions, thoughts, arguments? Yes. Oh, well, I'm sorry. This guy's in charge of the mic.
So we win the president, assuming we win the Senate, assuming we win the House, for at least 2 years, we're going to own the show. Now, the last time we did this, we wasted it. The time before that, we wasted it. Pelosi has lockstep votes. Schumer had lockstep votes. Republicans vote their conscience, vote their minds, vote their constituents. but never kind of get off the dime, and then we never execute. Something we could simply execute on, and should be very popular, is Schedule F, making the politicals responsible.
Does Schedule F require a law, or is that an executive order?
It could be an executive order, but if you put it into law, it cannot be revoked like Biden did January 21st, 2020.
Okay. We need to be very careful. You said we own the show for 2 years. You don't have 60 votes in the Senate, you don't own nothing except on reconciliation, okay? And now judges, because the other team got rid of it. So it is our team needs to knock off saying, the Republicans didn't do this, when two things happened. You had the Freedom Caucus, which killed the President Trump's idea about block granting, getting rid of Obamacare and block granting it to the states. You had, 20 or so Freedom Caucus guys who were too cool for school, and they weren't going to do it, and it got delayed and delayed and delayed because they wanted to do things in reconciliation that weren't legal, and you try and explain quietly and slowly and loudly to them, that can't pass. No, if we hold our breath, it will. But anyway, so you do have groups in the Republican Party, and the Freedom, I don't know if it was called the Freedom Caucus then, but it was a bunch of 20 guys who were more conservative than Trump, and therefore didn't pass something that was 70% of what you wanted, because we couldn't legally pass 100%. That was one thing that killed us. But if you don't have 60 votes in the Senate, and we were going to be able to do this through reconciliation, so you could do it with 51 votes in the Senate. We could have got this done, but it didn't happen. But you need, on most bills that deal with laws, like Schedule F, that would require 60 votes in the Senate if the Democrats filibuster. So it's not fair to say the Republicans failed to get rid of Obamacare. Most Republicans were for it. It was the Freedom Caucus that said we won't do it that way until it was too late to get it done. And it was one guy in the Senate that cost us the vote, McCain. And you can decide who you're mad at. Trump called him and insulted him that morning. Okay? Are you mad at Trump for not thinking that people don't like to be insulted, and if their one weapon is a vote, they might use it against you? Or are you mad at McCain for being small and not going, okay, the president was a jerk to me, I will do this for the country? You can decide who you're mad at, but that's what McCain and Trump together killing it in the Senate. That is not the Republican Party failing to do something. That is two people in the Republican Party deciding not to do something. And don't blame the whole party when a handful of people think they've got this, this is perfect and we're too conservative for everybody else and we won't do anything other than this, and that kills the thing. That's not the Republican Party. That's 20 people, okay? And the other thing on the Senate side there, that was two people that did that, not one. And you could decide that one of them was fault and the other one wasn't. Then it's only one person. But it was one or two. It wasn't everybody. So we just really need to be careful, because most of the Republican Party is really hanging together and getting stuff done. You do have people from time to time who wander off and go, I have an idea. Can I stick my idea that nobody likes on top of your bill that is must pass? And I will not vote for your bill that is must pass unless I get my thing, which costs us votes other places. That's one person being unhelpful. That's not the Republican Party failing to function. Yeah. Well,
really appreciate Grover for being so thorough that we've got time for just one more question.
The oldest of
spilled up
my
here.
5 siblings lives in Iowa, where the final Des Moines Register poll had Kamala Harris winning, and Trump wound up with 58.6% of the vote. Is there some institutional self-delusion going on with these pollsters?
On that one, I think that was so off that the Iowa poll that came out just ahead saying that she was ahead, that Kamala Harris was ahead 5 points in Iowa, and it turned out we won by 58.6. That's almost 20 points. Okay, a lot. I thought we were ahead by 10% at some point during the night. That was the number I remembered. Not 5 for you, but 10 for us, and evidently more than that. The reason why I think that was just done dishonestly in order to give some sense of false hope and to discourage Trump voters was that the Iowa newspaper that did it told the polling company that did the poll for them, you are not allowed to release the internal guts of the poll. They said, well, who did you poll? Did you poll the right number of Republicans and Democrats? Did you poll the right number of people by age, by region? You know, how do you, because you can look at a poll and see if they made a real effort. You can never get 100%, I suppose, but to make a real effort to get the right balance of people in Iowa. They wouldn't let, we paid for the poll, and they wouldn't release it themselves, and they wouldn't let the polling company, which now has egg on their face, right, because they did something for that the Iowa newspaper wanted, which is they probably told them how to pick them. They wouldn't release that. It means they know it was a bad poll. They knew it was a bad poll when they put it out. They knew it was disinformation. So in that case, I don't think it was pollsters being misled. It was because the pollster doesn't want to go through life being told you write bad polls when the Iowa newspaper was the one who ordered them to do that. So yeah, that was not I think the polls are better this time than like the last time, which they're way off. But there's some polls you could look at and say that one was dishonest because of the way they polled people. Okay.
Whoa! So, before you go anywhere, you know the drill. Lovely Adam Smith attire, a tie just for you. It's green like money, like the more money you'll have in your pocket over the next 4 years, probably. Hey-o, I'll be here all week. Grover, thank you so much. And as you know, he's got another meeting to go to, so you guys are gonna chill out at the end of this while I get him out of the building. But thank you so much, Grover. Always interesting to hear your insight, but particularly on elections. Join us on December 4th for our next Wednesday Wake Up Club breakfast. I encourage you to RSVP online at leadershipinstitute.org/breakfast. And now I see him in the back. There's Kevin Tober. Will you please step up to the lectern? I encourage and invite anyone interested in seeing a tour of the Stephen P.J. Wood and the Emerson G. and Dolores Reinsch Center for Campus Reform to meet Kevin here at the lectern. He'll give you a great tour of the Leadership Institute and will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next month.